All right, good evening, everyone. We are here Monday, March 20th in the Great Hall, and I will ask the city clerk to take the roll.
Councilor King.
Present.
Councilor Cole.
Present.
Councilor Vaughn.
Present.
Councilor Finn.
Present.
Councilor Harris.
Present.
Councilor LaForest.
Present.
Councilor Liang.
Present.
Councilor Calhoun. President Hughes.
Here.
8 members.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Everyone will please rise and join me in a moment of silence for all those serving in our military here and abroad, and think of their families. And if you'll face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now,
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present, and are being acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And I see Councilor Camucci has joined us.
Thank you.
Marshall present. All right, very well. Madam Clerk, if you would begin with our first agenda item.
Number one on the agenda, 2017-038, appropriation for $147,000 for Adam Shore House Next Seawall Repair Grant. Upon the recommendation of the Director of Municipal Finance and with the approval of the Mayor, an appropriation in the sum of $147,000 to the Department of Public Works, Adam Shore House Next Seawall Repair Grant Fund, number 3444, same to be transferred from Hotel Motel Fund 4512, open space.
And I see this, so Deirdre Hall is here from the Department of Public Works to speak to this. Hello.
So this is an appropriation order for $147,000 for the match requirement for the EPA grant from the state. The state is giving us $441,000 for the permitting and design of 6,000 linear feet of seawall along Adam Shore and House Neck. The seawall that we're going to be planning and designing was part of a 2011 seawall study. Those seawalls were ranked all C's and D's in that study. There's been some review of the seawalls. They have all their different types, precast, they have revetments, and there was some substantial damage in the, I believe they said in the revetments, in the storm revetments, there are voids in between the rocks, which are causing issues with wave action and undermining the stability of the revetments. There's cracking in the precast concrete block seawalls. The cast in place seawall has washout behind the seawall, so they're losing their stability from behind the seawall. Additionally, some of the granite block wall units are starting to fail because they're in unsuitable soils. This seawall is pretty important in the sense that it protects not only the land, but also a lot of critical infrastructure. We have sewer, water, and gas utilities immediately adjacent to the seawall. Also, that's an emergency artery, as you know, for that part of town. The planning has some environmental issues, some title concerns, flood elevation issues, and also we're taking into account potential sea level rise in design. So this is a 3-to-1 grant, so we're just looking for that additional city match so we can access the additional city funds.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Forrest.
Thank you, Madam President. The city of Quincy will be working with timeline on this. They have the same firm that did our Edgewater Drive seawall project. Really great for us to work with. The seawall permitting process under the past administration really took a very, very long time. And so as we're looking at this, we're looking at a 20-month project schedule just for design, engineering, and permitting. This seawall section, so 6,000 linear feet, it picks up all of the highest risk repetitive loss areas that we've had particularly the northeast facing storm. So the section that is going to get addressed is Marymount from the intersection of Shore Ave, Narragansett, Chickatawbit, and Norton. That area has had a lot of loss. Even just this last storm, we were pumping water out over the seawall. It followed the shoreline, Norton Road, picks up Shelton Road, which has had some pretty significant damage, goes down and it picks up Post Island, and it also picks up the Willows. So, you know, you're looking at the area that had the most repetitive loss, a significant section of seawall. And the first part of the piece of the puzzle is to get this engineering permitting design done. And we will be having a neighborhood meeting as soon as we get that coordinated with Ty and Bond. I would say probably a month or so from now to let people understand what the impact is going to be and the scope of the work. And I would like to give a shout out to my predecessor, Leo Kelly, that the Hotel Motel Tax Fund does allow for seawall repairs, and that's where we will be utilizing the funds for the match. I think it's funds very well spent in protecting thousands of homes in our coastal neighborhood. So I would like to move the appropriation and ask my colleagues to join me in supporting this. It's a very important project for the residents of Ward 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Yes, Councilor Finn.
Thank you, and Ms. Hall. One of the things I just want to be clear is that the actual grant was for $441,000, correct, that we've received from the Massachusetts Executive Office of...
Correct.
Okay, great. And again, this is a match that's consistent with the grant, which is part of the grant that I presume we applied for and entered into.
Yes.
Right, okay, fantastic. So essentially this is leveraging close to $500,000 in resources. The other thing that's absolutely amazing to me is the number of permits required. That one of the end products of this will be that you have essentially permits in place to actually proceed afterwards, correct?
Correct. Yes, lots of permits. It's spelled out with an ENF through MIPA. We're going to need an order of conditions from the Concom, Army Corps permitting, 401 water certification, filed for under the NIPD's construction general permit, Chapter 91 license, and potentially CZM federal consistency.
Right. Again, I'm going to join Council LaForce in supporting this. I think it's, again, you know, oftentimes, given the level of age and wear and disrepair of different cities' assets and the like, that some people will want to shake their heads and say there's nothing we can do. But I think actually the pursuit of this is indicative of really, there is something we can do, and we've started that. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Councilor Crowe.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Just so the body is aware, I had a conversation with the auditor, and I'll let her kind of chime in on it, but just to give you a flavor as to what the, you know, what the cash flow looks like in the hotel motel tax, because I know we'll be having some subsequent conversations regarding that as well, so I just recognize the auditor.
Through you to the council.
Currently.
Oh my God. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Currently, there's a balance in the hotel motel, in the open space portion of $1,960,000. And that is after we have taken out the debt service payment of roughly $666,000. We will be expecting 2 more payments in that will go towards this open space portion, and that will be for the next 2 quarters. So we're probably expecting maybe another between $500,000 and $600,000 into this account. And currently, right now, we just pay the debt service. There was a park bond quite some time ago. We're currently paying that bond out.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Auditor.
Sorry, Madam President.
Yes.
Can you just clarify that again, Madam Auditor? You said that there's an expected $500,000 or $600,000 coming into the account? So from the hotel motel tax?
Correct. We receive quarterly payments.
We've received the first 2 quarters, so we have another payment that we will be getting at the end of this quarter, which is the end of March. That will get posted, I would assume, in the treasurer's office, you know, once it's received from the state. will get another quarterly payment at the end of June.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Great, thank you. So is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Councilor LaForest, seconded by Councilor Finn. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Counselor King.
Yes.
Counselor Crowe. Counselor Vaughn.
Yes.
Counselor Finn.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor LaFarge.
Yes.
Counselor Leeang.
Yes.
Counselor Calhoun.
Yes.
President Hughes.
Yes.
9 members.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, number 2, 2016-111, update. Order for a study in hearings related to water and sewer infrastructure by Quincy City Council Public Works Committee. And Commissioner Ramondi is here to speak.
Great, thank you. Yes, Councilor Finn.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, when I introduced this a while back now, almost a year ago, that part of it had grown. In fact, if he's watching TV, I apologize because I probably forgot to invite him here, but it really grew out of a conversation with a constituent, Peter Forbes, who was talking to me about the role asset management plays in particularly developing budgets and projecting out costs over time and looking at what return on investment might be in relation to, again, addressing what obviously is aging infrastructure. And so when I submitted this particular order to basically investigate, to conduct hearings or whatever in relation to it, as I began to speak with the commissioner and with other people within the city, again, including Mr. Shea is here this evening. One of the things that I discovered as it related to both water and sewer and drain was that I was kind of impressed with what I found as I began to look closer at this in terms of a kind of integrated approach that they were taking in terms of again, approaching these very issues in terms of what is the status of our assets within water and sewer and drain. And again, how is the best way of addressing this? Now, clearly, we live in an age of a time of scarcity, quite honestly, that we have, as has been mentioned here before, is the Clean Water Act, which has now placed tremendous requirements on us that we're supposed to meet at the same time when they're actually declining funding in relation to this. And so the idea of being on top of this is more important than ever. And actually that's happening in both sewer and drain and in the water department. And again, we don't want to be here all night in relation to these things. So again, I think we will have the department back at some other point in time to focus on the water. But this evening, just looking in terms of the sewer and drain system, they've kind of broken out of a siloed approach in terms of how to manage these specific assets and are looking at these in such a way that basically fixes one problem more or less, or is looking at one problem, and how do we get the maximum return out of that specifically by conducting things in an integrated fashion. And so with that, again, through you, Madam President, I'm happy that the commissioner's here, and I know Ms. Hall has some things to say in regards to this as well. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam President, members of the council, thank
Mr.
you for
Commissioner.
the invitation to be here this evening. My role will be brief. I won't be making any substantive representation. Ms. Hall will be doing that. But it does provide me an opportunity to talk to you a bit about this outstanding public servant who is Quincy born and raised, grew up in Housenet, somehow went to North Quincy High School, became an attorney. As you know, with continuing challenges from regulatory authorities, as Councilman mentioned, our first presenter, Deirdre Hall, with the support of Mayor Cope and this council, transitioned from the Solicitor's Office to the Department of Public Works Compliance Manager. With the absence of a city engineer and at my direction, she has been assigned additional responsibilities, including management of certain sewer and drain operations. As impressive as the quantity, variety, and quality of her work is and has been, what is most exceptional is the ease and enthusiasm which she accepts these expanded responsibilities. She understands that every aspect of public service is vital, and because of this, she undertakes every administrative and operational assignment with professionalism and energy. Today, she is as comfortable and proficient in dungarees and work clothes, flipping a manhole, looking at a section of pipe irregularities and sampling outfalls, as she was in a suit representing the city at a civil service hearing. On top of her daily workload and on her own initiative, since July, when she has assumed this responsibility, she has, this is the past 9 months, been certified as a professional municipal stormwater manager. We're a nation of how many millions of people? Only 193 people in the whole country have that certification. Only 2 in Massachusetts. And we have one right here in this chamber. Obtained pipe assessment certification, manhole assessment certification, lateral assessment certification, National Association of Sanitary Sewer Companies certification. She has obtained a graduate certificate in environmental policy in December 2016, completed 2 classes in graduate GIS certificate program, presented on SSCS IDDE integration at the New England Water Environmental Association meeting in January 2017, submitted an article for publication in the New Collection Journal on that same topic, became a member of the State Stormwater Collaborative and chair of the Advocacy Subcommittee, become a member of the Neponset River Stormwater Collaborative, which consists of municipalities within the Neponset River watershed, been invited to present at the spring meeting of the New England Chapter of American Public Works Association on catch basin cleaning and MS4 compliance. She's been instrumental in obtaining a $60,000 CZM resiliency grant, a $40,000 DEP infrastructure grant, and a $55,000 CPC Butler Pond grant. And on top of that, this month, she scheduled training on erosion and sediment control. She has earned the respect of her peers. Clearly, she is most qualified to provide you with the information that you are seeking tonight. We look forward to her presentation. We look forward to another meeting, Chairman Finn and members of the council, to bring in a water expert as well, Paul Delabarba here, just to see how the council will function this evening and what any other information you may have. We are in the process of finalizing a water model, a hydraulic model of our entire system. And I think that document alone, once we share it with the mayor's office when the final preparation of that, will answer perhaps most of the questions that you folks may have with respect to the well site. But it's a pleasure to bring to you again, my dear.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Yes.
No, it's just, that's quite an introduction to you, Chris, so don't disappoint us
I know,
here.
thank you, I think. All right, let me just get the PowerPoint going. So good evening again, and I'm going to present this evening on our sewer and drain infrastructure updates. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the gray infrastructure that we've been repairing, assessing, and then as well as some of the operational practices that the department's been doing in order to be effective and efficient with ratepayer dollars to try to solve 2 problems with 1 procedure, I guess. So there's a couple of handouts that I have, just because the slides really The images didn't come out very well in the slides because they're big images or they're not clear, so I'd like to get those out before I start. So the update's going to consist of a little talk about sanitary sewer infrastructure. We're going to start with the big picture, look at it nationally just briefly, and then we're going to talk Quincy specific. We're going to look at stormwater infrastructure nationally, and then Quincy specific. I'll touch upon the GIS mapping updates that we've done sort of throughout as we go. And I'm going to talk about some of the outreach that we're doing in the community about our clean water programs. We really feel in the department that it's important for our residents to know what we're doing with their money and what they're buying with their dollars. So to start, the American Society for Civil Engineers gives America's wastewater and stormwater infrastructure nationwide a D. $298 billion is what is estimated to be invested over the next 20 years to keep the industry going for wastewater and stormwater systems. That number is mostly attributed to sewer pipes. The Clean Water Act initially did a lot with financial investment in our sanitary sewage treatment plants. So a lot of those have been upgraded, but it's kind of to the neglect of our conveyance system. So the majority of that money is necessary in our conveyance system. We have 800,000 miles of public sewer pipe in the U.S., and just the construction without the engineering is about $100 to $200 per linear foot to rehab the sewer pipes. And Quincy is no exception. So the average age for sewers in the United States is 47 years, and the average age for sewers in Quincy is 92 years old. And 80% of our sewers are greater than 80 years old, and we have 176 miles of sewer pipe that is greater than 80 years old. These pipes are not meant to last forever. They do have a lifespan, and they're approaching the end of their age. This is a breakdown of San Quincy's sanitary sewer system by age. I broke it into the decade that the pipe was placed into the ground. So if we can, I need glasses. Okay, so all the way to the right would be an unknown date, and then you have 1889, I think it says, and going to the left is the current investment. So as you can see, in the past few decades, there's been very, very little investment in our underground infrastructure versus what it was, back in the turn of the mid 1900s. Yeah.
Big investment bet.
Yeah. So one of the exercises I did when preparing for this presentation was to actually figure out not only is our infrastructure old, but our infrastructure is also very vulnerable because we have so much coastline. So I created a 200-foot buffer around all of our coastline on GIS and calculated that we have 66,851 feet of sewer pipe located within 200 feet of the coast. That's 12.6 miles of pipe. That's just by location alone is exposed to tidal influence. And we have 484 sewer manholes also within that same buffer. So when we're that close to the coast, we're subject to tidal infiltration, and also the salt water can cause damage to our infrastructure, either way of mortar and things like that in the manholes. So in addition to our sewer infrastructure being old, we also have other old infrastructure. So we're talking a little bit about stormwater. We have 52 tide gates. Some of them are double tide gates, that's why that number doesn't add to 52. But 40 are in very good to fair condition, and 7 are in very poor to poor condition. The estimated cost to repair these is about $218,000 if we were to repair them all now. Again, we're vulnerable. These are our outfalls. I'm sure anyone who has coastal area in their district will understand that outfalls are essential to getting flood water off our people's streets. 18 outfalls right now are in poor to very poor condition. This is Sexton Circle. 115 outfalls are in fair condition and very good condition. We have 308. Some we can't even find. They're buried, they're broken. You can't find them. But of the ones that we can locate, we have 18 that are in poor to very poor condition. Some of the outfalls are very large. and the cost to rehab them. I think the one on Chickatawba was over $1 million, if I think. But some are less, some are 8-inch pipe, a little bit less. So right now, we're going through an assessment of which outfalls we think we really need to hit first for rehab. We'll talk a little bit about our drain infrastructure, 9,329 catch basins, 305 drain manholes, and 150 miles of drain pipe. And in fiscal, let's just say 17, sorry. In fiscal year 17, we cleaned 3,120 catch basins, 1,180 tons of debris, identified 272 catch basins in need of repair, and repaired 75. That's the maximum our budget allowed us to do. And disposed of 7,011 tons of debris for street sweeping. Just these budget items are relatively new. With the help of the mayor and the help of this council, we've been able to fund this additional work. It's essential to our communities, specifically catch basins and street sweeping, because it helps, again, get the floodwaters off our streets and the rain more efficiently. Okay, so now we're going to get into MS4. So what are some of the things we're required to do for stormwater, and I guess in some ways sewer compliance? These are the 6 minimum control measures associated with the NIPD's permit. We're going to focus on number 3 tonight. Number 3 deals with kind of where the sewer and the drain cross each other, where there's an overlap, where there's a regulatory overlap, and sometimes an actual physical overlap. But we're going to talk about that specifically, because that's something that our department has really been focused on, is being more innovative in how we can leverage funds from one to solve another problem on the other side. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So there it is, illicit discharge. Okay, so MS4 investigations require us to map our entire stormwater system. So right now we have a good majority of our stormwater system mapped. It's a good time to pass out my maps. Again, I like to bring technology, so I'll pass out the iPads and you can take a peek at them. I think I'm in the sewer layer, but you can click on an asset, a pipe or a manhole. Information on that will come up on the side. We have all of our plans scanned. If you click on, actually I'm in the sewer, so you can't, but if you were in the drain layer, you could click on the outfall, you can see the photograph of the outfalls that we take. Can you pass that on? On the other iPad, what I have here is, in addition to mapping just what is in the ground, our infrastructure, we also have conditional assessment related tables. So when we go out and do a conditional assessment of something that's not permanent, some condition that changes, we would track that in a table, and then we relate the table to the asset, because initially, the condition of the manhole may be X today, and then after we rehab it, it's Y. So that changes. So that's not something that we would put as like an asset ID in our GIS, but we would keep it in a conditional table. So you can. That's I believe it's on. Is it on so much? I think I put it on outfall sampling, so you can find out the data we're collecting when we're doing outfall sampling. So we're mapping the full stormwater system, not just our outfalls. So as we're out there doing investigations, which we'll talk about in a second, we're also mapping new drain manholes that we find, we're mapping new catch basins that we come across, and the pipe segments that connect those. Drain is one of those things that, in our history, because of the flooding issues that we've had, just historically, we've made changes to the drain system and don't have those updated plans. We've made them as needed because our residents have had lots of inland flooding, and so but it's important for us now to know where those pipes are, where those manholes are, so that we can make sure that we're keeping it up to date, and that our infrastructure is operating properly. We also have to do extensive IDDE investigation in every catchment, which includes key junction manhole sampling. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And as part of the IDDE, that includes screening in every outfall, so we have to go to every single outfall and try to grab a dry weather sample of this flow. And we're testing it for the different pollutants and parameters that would necessarily indicate cross-contamination from the sanitary sewer. So we'll do that in dry weather. We also have to do it in wet weather. And then if we can't find the outfall, we're allowed to grab that sample from the upstream manhole. We are doing manhole inspections, so every time we're in the catchment and going into a manhole, we're assessing that manhole for its condition. If you look at the packet I handed out, the 4 pages, those are the data points we assess on each manhole. When we pull all the data, there's 4 pages of 11 by 17 paper, and that's every piece of data that we assess from each manhole that we open in the drain system. We also do CCTV inspections, and from those CCTV reports, we can create tables as well that assign scores to the pipes so that we can prioritize our repairs. Those with the most defects would get the highest priority score, and that way we can make sure that we're targeting our rehab effectively. Dye testing needs to be done in order to confirm any sort of cross connections or indirect connections from sanitary sewer into the drain, and building inspections. So we go in, sometimes we would go into a home or into a building to confirm an illicit connection. So as you can see by the data that I gave you, the 4 pages, there's a lot of data management associated with this exercise. We're getting 30 points on each manhole at times, probably more on some. So it's important for us to have a good system, and so that we don't lose that data, because that's time and energy and investment by the city, by the ratepayers, by the taxpayers. We want to make sure that we retain that data, so it helps us with future planning. And then in addition to all of this, we also have to test every receiving water for specific pollutants that are identified by DEP, and every receiving water has different pollutants. So for instance, right now, we're about to go into Furnace Brook. Furnace Brook is impaired for dissolved oxygen, so I have to test for dissolved oxygen, I have to test for total phosphorus, and I need to test for BOD. Okay. So, like I said, there's different tests for different bodies of water. So, you saw your data examples. This is where I couldn't really put the slide up because there's a lot of data. In addition to the IDDE portion, we have this other requirement on the state side, which is we got to deal with I&I. The Mass DEP regulations, 312 CMR 12.04, require us to come up with an I&I plan. How are we going to reduce I&I? And the plan requires us to come up with a phased evaluation of our sewer system. We need to conduct structural investigations on our pipes and figure out where our deficiencies are so that we can reduce the amount of sanitary sewer overflows we have and reduce the amount of II in the system. Based upon those findings in the investigation, that's how we prioritize which pipes we're going to go to first and rehab first. The plan also has to include a budget. We have to identify sources of potential funds to do this type of work, and the plan has to be submitted to Mass DEP this December for approval. So we have these two competing things. We have IDDE on one side, which is the federal requirement, and then we have the state requirement for II. As part of the sanitary sewer evaluation survey associated with the II, these are the different techniques we use to assess our sewer system. I'm not going to get into everyone specifically, but it obviously requires, again, opening manholes, putting the camera in the pipe, looking at dyes, all starting to look familiar, doing flow isolation, doing some smoke testing, and lots of data management. Because just like every drain manhole we open, we have the data points, the same data points in sewer manholes. So for 3,000 drain manholes and probably 3,000 sewer manholes, we have all those data points that we're collecting. So what we've decided to do is, as you can see, a lot of the things that we're doing, both the sewer and the drain, are kind of similar. So what the department started to do is integrate our sanitary sewer evaluation and our illicit discharge detection and elimination program. And why should we do this? So these are all the things associated with the Clean Water Act. So the Clean Water Act, like I said, deals with wastewater treatment, it deals with collection systems, it deals with separate storm sewers, combined sewers, impaired water. We talked about specific pollutants for different water bodies. It deals with just all sorts of requirements. And to add something else on top of it just makes it more confusing. So if we look at these together, can we, make it more holistic, more comprehensive? So these are the comparison, like we talked about, of the investigation procedures associated with each one of these. So IDDE involves base flow monitoring, grabbing manhole samples, looking at the structural conditions of both the drain and the sewer, inspecting for illicit connections, and repairing any illicit connections. Where the sanitary sewer evaluation survey, again, requires flow monitoring, manhole inspections, structural and O&M conditions. These are starting to look almost identical, visual inspection for inflow and infiltration, and pipe and manhole repairs. So as you start to look at what investigation procedures are used in each one of these, there's clearly overlap. And then how we prioritize. So we prioritize the area, the infrastructure areas we're going to look at in IDDE based upon our outfall sampling results, based upon the sewer system age and materials, based upon SSO reports, stormwater and drain crossings, as well as how close you are to a bathing beach, if a particular outfall discharges to a bathing beach. And under the sanitary sewer evaluation survey, we're looking at consequence of failure analysis, again, the sewer system age, SSO reports, hydraulic limitations, and proximity to beaches. So all this is starting to look similar. So if you integrate these together, you can understand more how your system flows, you can do more analytical sampling, and then your inspections and your pipe inspections can hit both requirements. And you can make more targeted repairs so that you're correcting both economic problem, I&I, a structural problem, as well as an environmental problem, which is the IDDD on the other side. So this is what we did when I started. So this was our planning. We went through a planning procedure where we looked at some of the parameters associated with what potential illicit discharges. So we looked at history of sanitary sewer overflows, sewer and drain crossings, age of pipe, and things of that nature that would lead you to potentially have an illicit discharge between the sewer and the drain. And from that exercise, the area in orange became our highest potential priority for potential illicit discharges. So you can see it's most of North Quincy, Montclair. And so what we did is when we decided to start planning what I'm calling, I don't know what the real name is, I'm calling it phase 3, sanitary sewer evaluation survey. Which are those green lines and the blue lines up on this map. We overlapped them on purpose in some of the same areas where we knew we were going to have illicit discharge issues. Because to confirm an illicit discharge, you have to look at the sewer pipe. So why look at the sewer pipe twice? CCTV is very, very expensive. You have to first pay to clean the pipe, and then you need to pay to camera the pipe. So it makes more sense to just put the camera in the pipe once. So that's what we're doing. In addition, we're looking at a rate-based system and a consequence of failure-based system, and we're also investigating pipes near the coast. A lot of environmental consequences if those were to fail, as well as a lot of potential savings there because we're getting infiltration from tidal water. All right, so here's planning in action. This is an action shot. All right, so this is a catchment out by Airport Road. When we did some dry weather sampling, you can see it's blue circled with the red. When we did dry weather sampling here, we got some pretty high hits for pollutants at that outfall. The light blue pipes are the sanitary sewer, and the dark blue pipes are the drains. So as you can see, there's some crossings. You can see where the sewer and the drain are crossing. And actually, you can't tell from this map, but the elevation of the sewer pipe is higher than the elevation of the drain. And that's problematic because when it leaks, it goes with gravity, so it's coming down, not going up. So when the drain's underneath the sewer, you have a much bigger problem. So we have a lot of crossings here. So because we got the hit at the outfall in dry weather, we shouldn't have any flow in dry weather, but we did, and it was, not pretty. So we decided to highlight this area for our sanitary sewer evaluation survey. And this is what we found. Hopefully. So that's the sewer pipe. Some pictures of what the sewer pipe looks like in those areas. All right, so we have some major problems with our sewer pipe here, and it's leaking into our drain system, which is why we had the hit at the outfall. So what this dry weather sampling is, eventually wet, we've only done dry weather sampling so far, we're moving on to wet in the spring. But what we're finding with the dry weather sampling is it's giving us a new way to prioritize our sewer repairs. Okay, because sewers need to be repaired for, economic reasons, to reduce the amount of I&I that we're sending to Deer Island and paying to be treated. They need to be done, to keep your sewers from failing, but they also need to be done for environmental reasons. So when we're using all these different variables to assess where's the best place to put our money, we're getting the best bang for our buck. So I don't want to talk about this in a negative light. The C Street project was planned in 2013, 2014, before we were doing dry weather sampling. It was a very successful I&I removal project, but I just want to sort of show you what can happen when you don't factor in that IDP part of variable when you're talking about I&I. So we spent, in this council, voted to borrow that, with the support of the mayor, the money from the MWRA for this I&I rehab project. This is a 20-inch pipe along C Street, and I think we talked about C Street with the seawall earlier. So this is a piece of critical infrastructure that serves House Neck. It's very tightly influenced. It's underwater I'm guessing probably half the day. So we cleaned it and we lined it, and all those purple manholes, we rehabbed those manholes as well. So we effectively removed II from this project, from this pipe. And that pipelining was done in, I'm going to say it was done in maybe August. We hadn't done the laterals yet, but the main pipe was done in August. We still had to do the laterals. So in that same summer, we went through the exercise of delineating our catchments. So what that means is we looked at the elevation of the ground, as well as the elevation of the land, as well as the flow direction of our drain pipes, to figure out which land areas discharge to which outfalls. And this is our catchment delineation for this area. So as you can see, the catchments are very, very small. Some of them only have that small 20-inch pipe segment and a few other branch lines that come off. But that is the catchment delineation for C Street, and those are all of them drain to a different outfall. And then we did our dry weather sampling in the fall. So this was after we lined C Street. And what we're testing for are parameters for sanitary sewage. We're testing for surfactants, which is soap. So if someone's, dishwasher or clothes or a washing machine is discharging and the sewage is leaking into the drain, we'll get hit for surfactants there. We're testing for ammonia, which is human waste, as well as chlorine, which is the evidence of drinking water, right, in the system. So that's what we're hitting. We're testing the outfall score. And as you can see, we got pollutant hits at those catchments. That's after we lined the pipe. So when we chose to line this pipe, we lined it because it was economically beneficial. The amount of I&I we removed had a direct cost-benefit analysis to save money in the long run rather than treat the I&I. The smaller lateral pipes off that pipe maybe didn't have that same cost-benefit analysis. So you have a smaller pipe, less I&I, the cost to line it. Maybe the cost-benefit analysis wasn't there, but unfortunately, because we weren't factoring in this third variable of environmental harm, now we need to go back and look at those pipes. Why is that important? Well, these people were put out an entire summer with a bypass. They have coastal property, and they had to deal with a bypass all summer. And it's hard to go back to them and say, I know we did it, I know we were here, but we need to check this now too. So by doing this integrated planning now, we're hoping to avoid this. And I think so far we're doing pretty well. So upcoming sewer rehab projects. We recently did, or we're in the middle actually, of doing manhole rehab for 19 manholes along Furnaceburg Parkway. Again, it's in the easement off Furnaceburg Parkway, so it's not actually on the street, it's in the easement. So it's a very tightly influenced, so it helps with I&I. We did 2 pipe excavation repairs along Furnaceburg Parkway. And these funds, it's important to know, these funds were paid entirely, well, almost entirely, through mitigation funds from the development that John Flatley put in. So this was a condition to their development. They had to move a certain amount of I&I, and they funded this project. We're going to have the replacement of 9 service connections on John Street. The pipe actually isn't in too bad a shape, but it's settled, and now the service connections are causing some infiltration there. And we're going to do 2-point repairs and CIPP lining along Bayside Road. Other additional sewer rehab projects, these pipes here are going to be, highlighted here, are going to be lined and a couple of point repairs, some manhole lining. This is part of our Wallaston Beach project, which has been ongoing for many years. So this is going to be done, the point repairs and the manholes are being done now in the spring, and the lining work will be done in the fall. And alongside that work, we're going to be doing additional IDDE. So we're going to be doing manhole sample grafts in this area. This area, if you see this green area, this is catchment 00871. That's one catchment. All that area drains to one outfall. And if you, I don't know if you can tell, but it goes all the way up on the top of Forbes Hill. And it comes down, goes under the train station and into Sage Road. So that's a huge area for potential pollutants to get into the drain system. So we're going to be doing some grab samples in the drain manholes. And then this is the corresponding sanitary sewer evaluation survey we're going to be doing in the area as well. And that's going to include smoke testing and dye testing and CCTV work. So. And the other big thing that we've been doing, like I said, is trying to get the word out of why utility infrastructure investment is important. You know, our residents are the ones that are footing this bill, and I think it's really important for us to reach out to them and tell them what we're doing and why we're doing it, and sort of make it, in a sense, a commodity. They can feel like they're getting something valuable for what they're paying. So what we highlight when we've done multiple community meetings, we do them before every project. We talk about why investment is essential for the economy, fixing things before they break, it's less disruptive, that, you know, by planning in advance, we can save a lot of aggravation and a lot of cost. We also talk about how this investment increases our quality of life. We focus on, you know, the coastal tourism issues. We focus on the amount of money generated in recreation from our beaches, as well as money generated through commercial fishing. So by investing in our upgrades to our sewer system and our drain system, we're essentially making our waters cleaner, which is really helping our quality of life. And then it's critical to our public health. Obviously, there's, you know, pathogens and waterborne illnesses when we have that cross-contamination. It's a public safety issue because as infrastructure fails, you can have street collapses. And also, we're dealing with the more intense rainfalls, and we don't want to, by making sure that we're clearing our drains and allowing precipitation that falls to drain quickly and efficiently, we reduce the threat to public safety and public health for our residents. When we talk to the public, we talk about how there are short-term benefits, medium-term benefits, and long-term benefits to this. The short-term benefits are, you know, by reducing the amount of I&I, we can stabilize rates. Also, the medium-term benefits would be, you know, by fixing things early, rehabbing things before they break, we could actually end up saving money rather than waiting for it to fail. And then the long-term benefits, which is healthy waters for us and healthy waters for our kids. And hopefully a better economy, a better local economy because of those healthy waters. So the way we do this, the way we get this message out to people is through some targeted mailings, door hangers, quarterly newsletters. I'm sure you guys have seen our twice annual letter that comes out. And we all focus on what people are getting for their dollar. Here's some examples of some of our outreach. The one on the left is an invitation that we send before a public meeting. That's me in the mail. And then the other one is a slide that we do that we're just going to cover one of our presentations. Here's some of our door hangers that we use. For a project, we'll go around and hang those on residents' doors. We have a calendar, we have the clean water bumper sticker, which is a hot commodity if anybody wants one. And you know, we're just trying to get the message out there. I don't know if you guys have seen our branding too. See the truck, the decal on the truck? All of our water sewer drain trucks now have that decal to denote them as clean water vehicles. I got a newsletter as well. So, in summary, so the city's sewer and drain infrastructure is aging and it's vulnerable to coastal infiltration, but our work in stormwater and wastewater integrated planning are a natural fit and I think is a benefit economically to the town, to the city here, and integrated programs, planning and outreach especially will drive efficiencies and increase the public support for our programs.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Councilor Finn.
Thank you, Ms. Hall, for your presentation, but you know, one of the things I love this kind of stuff, quite honestly, in certain aspects, particularly in terms of the kind of the integrated concept that you're talking about. But take the example of your mentioning, and again, to put this in a context, you know, a lot of the folks that are listening, perhaps, they're not going to be too impressed with the Clean Water Matters campaign, quite honestly. That's not the thing that might be as important to them. I mean, there's people obviously who passionately care about the environment, don't get me wrong. But in terms of what you actually have done, is that what we're really talking about at the end of the day are savings, correct?
Correct.
And essentially, if you were to compare out, or to compare in some way, or to do the analysis related, you give an example around the C Street component,
Correct.
that to go back now, if you were to compare the cost of what that cost, and now we're having to go back this second time and the cost associated with that, that's probably a significant difference, correct?
Correct, because we have to mobilize again, we have to, I don't know whether you need, we had a bypass set up at the time, I'm not sure whether, I think the pipes are small enough that you may not need it if you could do it at low flow, but potentially a bypass, you have to do that again. You probably need to clean, then you gotta go back and clean those sewers, so you already had the company out there cleaning the main sewer. So it's really the cost associated with remobilization, demobilization, and also, you know, I think a lot of it is the effect on the residents. You know, like I said, that we already took away 6 weeks of their summer with a sewer project there, and a bypass. So on the C Street project, it would definitely be that, especially, and I think the C Street project is even more, I think highlights even more, because when you look at the amount of pipe that we didn't look at, it's very small. Like, there's probably only, I don't know, 100, 200 feet in some of those catchments that could be the problem. And we could have thought it, well, if we had done that sampling beforehand, we would have done that while we were out there. We would have investigated, we would have found it, and then we would have lined it when we were already out there. So there is this additional cost associated with us having to go back out there on C Street. But like I said, hopefully that won't be another.
But also now, what in the context of this, in terms of you've laid out essentially what the immediate plan is, but is there any attempt to look at it from a larger picture and perspective in terms of what the total cost could be if we went out over time in relation to what needs to be achieved here?
I briefly, it's really, hold on, I did some math, I managed to find it in the slide. On what it might cost. We have, what was it, 200, hold on one second, I'm sorry.
Oh, where you gave the square footage, you mean, or the
Yeah,
footage?
I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, but it would have been between like $200 million and $350 million on every pipe in the city. For the engineering.
So what's critical at this point, obviously, because we're not going to be able to come up with that amount, is to make certain choices and prioritize
Correct.
those things that have the greatest impact and the greatest effect.
That's correct. And that's what we're trying to do here, because we could look at any pipe in the city and it would be work. Every pipe in this, unless it was just for it, but really, because of the age of the pipe, every pipe has a crack, every pipe has a fracture, you know, which is a very small nominal defect. But what we need to do is figure out how we're going to prioritize the repairs we're going to do today. Where are we getting the best bang for our buck? Where do we want to invest today so that we get the biggest buyback for our kids, for our futures? And that's what we're trying to do by looking at this.
It just seems to me, given the age of so much of it, that I was wondering, is there any attempt of necessarily, your focus may not be on the oldest necessarily as much as where you're going to get the largest amount of the money and resources available. Over time, do you think that that would be possible, particularly in a budget process, of laying that out in terms of what your need is or
Yeah, the hard part is that we don't know what our need is until we investigate. So we have to first pay to investigate it before we know how much it's going to cost to repair it. So it's hard for me to put a dollar value on how much it's going to, when I come in front of, you know, when we come to you and we're talking about certain projects, I can put a dollar value on how much it's going to cost to investigate a particular area. But I'm not going to know how much it's going to cost to fix that area because I don't know what the defects are because I can't see them yet. I don't need to see them.
well, you're clearly building a rationale for the importance of investigation.
Right.
So, I mean, that's fantastic. But over time, you're building up a body of knowledge and data that should be able to also move forward in terms of assessing
Correct.
what costs might be moving forward.
Correct, yeah, and our focus right now, you know, we're still taking a coastal focus. Again, it has our biggest bang for the buck for I&I, and also, you know, there's a pretty good chance that because we have those defects so close to the water, that we may have exfiltration from those pipes as well. So it still meets both those goals at the same time. So right now, we're still taking more of a coastal focus, but what's funny about Quincy is that catchment I showed you in Wallaston Beach, that goes all the way up to Forbes Hill, that's coastal. All the way up on Forbes Hill is coastal, because it discharges to the coast. So we have to start thinking about, you know, we have to, what's coastal, what has a coastal influence, you know, what's under the ground, not necessarily what's on the street. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I don't know if my colleagues have questions, but I appreciate your presentation this evening. And I certainly look forward to hearing from the water side of things at some future point, but thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Forrest.
Thank you, Madam President. Ecotech speak stormwater management very well. It's one of my favorite topics, Deirdre, and it's been really great having you at DPW. Ward 1 really has seen a lot of the benefit of your work, and I'm very appreciative to you and to the Commissioner. You know, I appreciate the second circle outfall picture that you saw, and you know, anyone who's familiar with the coastline has seen a lot of outfalls in those conditions. And off the top of my mind, and the precinct brought to my attention in the meeting, one right next to Quincy between there and the Maritime Center is one of the worst of the worst. So, you know, us having a strategy at being able to repair those, as we see the improvements that have been completed on Edgewater Drive with the seawall, with the outfalls there, you know, we have had some significant storm events, and Edgewater Drive has been dry as a bone because we have put the right infrastructure in place. So I look forward to working with your department as you do that in other areas on the coastline. I think I'm on the Mass Municipal Association's Energy Environment Committee, where we stock 50s permits and stuff. The MS4 has been like the topic for the last couple of years. I just want to say, you know, the other thing I was noting with a lot of these improvements is the beach closures. We've had significant reductions in our beach closures because of this being measured. And it's really interesting that as you showed the graphics, it kind of makes me think of Finding Nemo, all drains into the ocean, right? That people don't think about when you're up in the inland areas of the community and you see the catch basins, people think it goes to the sewer, or they don't know, they're not conscious of it, and that all of that is draining to our waterways. And I think that you've done a tremendous job as well with the public outreach, with the newsletters, and helping to explain. And you know, I think for something you think would be so common sense, it really isn't. It really needs that outreach and explanation and education. I know you've marked the catch basins in a lot of the areas too, and I think you're actually going to be specifically targeting them, you know, drains to Wollaston Beach versus drains to the waterways to really help connect that for people. So I appreciate that efforts. You had mentioned the C Street project coming online this year. I just wanted to know, one, if you could get me kind of a blurb for my bulletin article newsletter, and what your timeline would be for that project.
Sure. So I'm hoping, because the catchments are small, we may be able to do the IDDE in-house. This is just not a lot of manholes to go in.
Yeah.
It'll be our first jump at that. It'll be our first jump at that in-house. But I have faith. We recently, because of the recent budget, we have a drain foreman funded, and that position is now filled. And I'm excited to move forward to try to do a little of this in-house now. I think those are good catchments to start in. So those can start whenever we have dry weather in order to do that. And the CCTV work in that area will be in the spring.
Right. And we've had a lot of the TV work done in Ward 1. I mean, I think for us, we're the highest risk area, the lowest lying areas. It's been the best return on the investment. I know we did a couple of years ago lining of the chimney hats cutting through. They call it the Camden Street line. And here you have these manholes filling up with tide waters, you know, 2 cycles a day. And so we had significant reduction, you know, just I work with that project. So, no, I think this is a great investment that the municipality needs to make. The age of our infrastructure, we're an old city. We talk about the turn of the century, and that's when most of our infrastructure was built. And it was built in particular, a lot of Ward 1 was cottages at that time. That's now a fully developed, you know, residential areas. And as our city grows, we need to have the infrastructure to support the services that people take for people are, you know, expecting with obviously with clean water and sewer services. So thank you very much, and I look forward to that information. Big thank you.
All right, anyone else?